So in this tutorial, we will go over how to combine your positive and negative IMO data, as well as different adducts that represent the same lipid molecule. Now, first let's go to our data. So the software, this script was built to work off MZmine data, but with a few minor changes, it can be used with any peak picking software. So if you go into the negative ID'd output from LipidMatch, usually in MZmine, all the samples, if you import them directly, should end in peak area or peak height. So we have to add these to the end. So in case you have large numbers of samples, you can use a quick Excel formula, equals, and then use the concatenate function, which pastes things together. And you paste your sample, put in quotes, space, peak with a capital P, area lowercase. You could also write peak height. That would work as well with a capital P. So if you drag from this lower corner to the right for as many samples as you have, and then Control C, right click, paste special, values. So now you have peak area, and then you want to do the same thing for positive ion mode. So if you go to your posit ID'd file, sometimes the samples will be sorted in different order. So you can do it again. And now you have your peak area. The next formatting you want to do to your table, make sure that you remove these extra columns right here where you did any additional calculations in both of them. So they'll cause errors. These columns should be exactly as they're outputted by LipidMatch. You shouldn't add any columns after the NA column. And if you do, you should move them prior to this NA column of NAs. Now, the last formatting thing we'll have to do is that the retention time column, whatever the name is, should be row space retention space time. And it should be exactly of that spelling in that case. So copy that, and also for our negative. So now that we've renamed our retention time column as well as our sample columns by adding peak area at the end, we can save both of those files. And once you save them, you can now open up your LipidMatch distribution, go to your additional tools folder, and double-click remove duplicates.r. Inside this script, you can scroll down to the bottom. You'll see some parameters. Where does the row start? So in this case, this is the row after the first header. So if we open up our file, one would mean this. So 1 is 2, 2 is 3 in a way. Then our window is the retention time window for which it will combine like molecules. So if it sees a sodium and a protonated PC 160181 within plus or minus 0.1 minutes in this case, it will combine them and consider them the same. Otherwise, the code will still combine the lipid molecules that have the same name, but it won't consider that you found both adducts as identifications for that one. I'll show you what that means when we look at the results. Then you have positive mode and negative mode. You can set one to false if you only have one polarity, and you can set pos-neg combined to false if you don't want to combine the positive and negative ion files. Note that if you are combining the positive and negative files, they have to have exactly the same name. So sample 1, 2, and 3 in this case. And then for positive ID, it should also be sample 1, 2, and 3. Also, note that it can have underscore neg or underscore pos, or neg or pos, that's different between the sample names, as that's automatically generated by the LipidMatch software, and it will still consider it the same sample name to combine them. The last thing you need to change is the directories for your positive and negative mode data. So let's go to these examples, and you can highlight and copy the directory. In this case, the name of the outputs is the same. Paste, Control F, and replace the backward slashes with forward slashes, which is what's needed in R. Make sure that in selection is selected in your RStudio and replace all. And then you can do the same thing if they're in the same directory. I can just copy that base part of the directory. If I can. And then paste it. Making sure that directories are perfect. And then all I have to do is press Control A and click Run. Then if there's any errors in red, often related to whether the file names were not the same or not, you can correct that. And if it worked, you should get a pos molecular species, a neg molecular species, where it starts to combine adducts, and a pos-neg molecular species, in this case, where it combines the negative and positive polarity data. So if I double-click that file, you can see here again is your identifications, but now we have positive and negative mode data. In the case where one or more adducts were found and identified by MSMS within the retention time window, for example, for these lysophosphatidyl-choline, it will show multiple adducts, which gives a lot higher confidence in that identification. Then you can see some of your negative ions down here as well. So often you should have a number of lipids which have identifications in both negative and positive mode data. That will give you higher confidence. And that is it for the tutorial.